CP24, Toronto's breaking news.
Well, more on the G20 now. CP24 special G20 correspondent Craig Kielburger joins us live from Kensington Market. So what's happening where you are, Craig?
Well, one of the biggest issues being discussed is the environment. World leaders, activists have been calling for it to be a top issue on the agenda when the G20 meets. One of those loudest voices is Philippe Cousteau, the legendary oceanographer, environmentalist, and we're joined now via phone with him. And Philippe, I have to ask, we've been seeing these images of the oil in the Gulf regions on the top of the ocean, but you've been diving underneath where the scientists say most of that oil lies. What have you seen in those dives?
In Mobile, Alabama, right now as we speak, and I've been covering this story for the last month and a half or so. What we're hearing in the news is accurate. It's a catastrophe unlike anything this country has ever seen, and one of the gravest, I think, in history. Period. I've seen it from as you said, from below the surface and from above the surface. And the problem with this oil spill is that it is at such depth. It's occurring a mile beneath the surface. And that we have to be worried about not only what we can see, the images that you see on the news of birds covered in oil and the wetlands, etc., but also what we can't see. It's a great concern as this oil is distributed through the water column. We're only starting to learn about some of these effects, these oil plumes deep underwater that are sucking up oxygen and causing further dead zones and impacting wildlife. It's very worrying.
Philippe, when the G20 and G8 meets here in Toronto, the media cycle will be partially shifting to this, away from the Gulf region. What do Torontonians and what does the world need to know about what's happening right now, what you're seeing in that region?
Well, this is a crisis that is a symptom of a bigger problem, Craig, that we are dependent upon carbon-based fuels, and we cannot continue to do that. It's not just disasters like this oil spill, but it's the rates of asthma and the healthcare crisis that occurs in these countries that are so dependent on coal and oil, etc., just like the United States. It's the impact on other parts of the environment. There are oil spills and air pollution and water pollution that occurs from these carbon-based fuels. Our addiction on oil is unsustainable, and this crisis reminds us of that, reminds us of the true cost of our inability and unwillingness to make the right decisions to begin to transfer to a carbon-free energy future.
Now, we see here in Toronto the effects of pollution when it comes to asthma on daily life, but when we look at the Gulf oil spill, often we see that as being so far away, but we hear reports that it's going as far as the Arctic Circle. Give us an idea of the scope and scale and how this is spreading.
Well, so far, over 100 million gallons of oil has spilled into the Gulf. So this is truly a mind-boggling disaster. We have another at least 1 month to a month and a half to go before a relief well will hopefully, though not 100% guarantee, will plug this pipe. So the challenge, of course, is that the circular current that flows through the Gulf of Mexico can carry this oil into the Gulf Stream itself off the coast of Florida. And that Gulf Stream, as we all know, flows along the Atlantic coast of the United States and then off into the central part of the Atlantic, the western coast of Scotland and Ireland, and up into the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic, of course, being the temperature regulator of the entire planet. So this is potentially a global catastrophe, and it's one that we're going to be fighting with for a very long time.
Well, that's a message that we hope world leaders will hear. Protests, environmental groups, even foreign heads of state are putting that issue at the front of the agenda when it comes to the G20. Philippe, thank you for giving us those updates straight from the Gulf Coast, straight from the time you spent right there on the ground.